people went up that were acting. Rishi just told me this before this presentation. And the purpose of this is to kind of tell you, give some credibility to hypnosis, because I was hypnotized for real in high school, and it changed my life. And I've been a big fan of kind of following studies related to it ever since. Can you hear me okay? I don't know if yeah, so this is going to start into that. Changed my life, and I've been a big fan of following studies related to it.
Are you hypnotized right now?
That's, I'm muted.
Are you streaming it right now from your computer?
Oh, I am. Okay, sorry. Okay, cool. Sorry about that. That's a little freaky. All right. So hypnosis is the induction of a state of consciousness in which a person apparently loses the power of voluntary action and is highly responsive to suggestion or direction. So when you think about it, it's a bit of an abstract thing. We're not talking about the mind that you're normally in, right? Usually we go about our day with very conscious thoughts, like, oh, I have to go to work, I gotta get this project done, I've gotta do X, Y, Z, and that's pretty much the state that we all live in all the time. But if you think about the state that you have when you're zoning out, or like you're thinking about something else but you're doing something, like a key example that most people use, saying that everybody's been hypnotized before, is like when you're driving. I don't know how many people have cars, but if like you're driving the same route every day, and one day you get off work and you can't stop thinking about your project, you get home and you're like, shit, how did I get home? You know, like your body just kind of in its subconscious state navigated kind of like the highways that you were on, you're able to get home. And it just kind of shows you that your subconscious state is very powerful, and it's paying attention all the time, and it's about tapping into that other part of your brain. So I also want to say it's extremely easy not to be hypnotized. I've heard people say that, like, oh, what if I go to a show and I'm the one hypnotized in the audience? And it's like, it's a conscious decision to like pay attention, right? The whole point of being hypnotized is that you let yourself kind of zone out and let some kind of more passive part of your brain take over. So it's not hard not to be hypnotized. Yes, so when you're in a show, you're usually hypnotized by being guided into a relaxed mental state. There's not any real magic that goes on. What happens is they have a stopwatch, or they'll just kind of do some meditative countdown. The one I was in, I was on stage, and he literally just kind of did this kind of yoga-y inspired thing where he guided us to relax different muscles in our body and to just let go of different thoughts. It really is about the compelling nature of the hypnotist. Like if you're somebody who is a good fit to be hypnotized on stage, you'll just kind of listen to this guy's voice and kind of do everything he tells you to do and find yourself in a very relaxed state that you've never been in before. So it's pretty cool. I also want to say that everyone can be hypnotized, but not everyone lets themselves be hypnotized. So there's definitely people who, psychologically speaking, are just more in control of their brains than other people. Like I'm pretty loose, go with the flow. Like I have no problem with like letting go of different thoughts, but I definitely have encountered people who have tried to be hypnotized and they can't just surrender that kind of control of their brain. It's like whether they're conscious or not, they're just kind of always kind of directing their brain in a certain way. They're always kind of activating that conscious part. Like they'll never really zone out while they're driving because they're like, I'm driving, I don't want to kill anybody. You know, they're like just on top of things. So that kind of leads me into this kind of different ratings. So when I was hypnotized, he kind of presented this rating right here. He said, of all the people who want to volunteer, we're going to get a spread of people who can actually be hypnotized for a show, right? And you have the people on the left, which are just closed, like they want to be hypnotized, but they're going to just sit in their chair and say, I don't know how to relax. I don't know how to let go. This is stupid. Like none of it's working, right? Those people are like obviously weeded out from the very beginning. And then there's kind of like the zombies on the right-hand side, which are completely hypnotized. They're not even fun to watch. So like the 9s and 10s, when you get in that relaxed state, they just fall asleep, or they kind of like start drooling, or like they just kind of stag on the floor, and like the only thing you can get them to do is to wake up outside of that relaxed state, or to just stay on the floor sleeping. So those aren't the best people to kind of like do cool things in front of an audience with. And then everybody else is in between. I was somewhere in the 7 or 8 range, so I got picked to do some pretty crazy stuff. So yeah, my story. It was a yearbook camp 2006. So I was a senior in high school. It was actually the summer before senior year, and they had enlisted a professional hypnotist to come in, and that was the evening's activity. And I was obviously like very intrigued, so I got a seat in the front row. And to set the stage, there was like 600 people there, that like people I'd never met, and I was like terrified because I have like, I mean, even then I think everybody has stage fright, right? Like I don't know what he's gonna make me do, but I want to see what it's all about. So I volunteered anyway. Okay, so I kind of already hinted at what this was like. Falling into a hypnotized state, for me, it was just the vocal walkthrough of him telling me to relax certain muscles and clear thoughts. I was sitting in a chair and I kind of slowly just let myself sag to the floor, like just complete surrender to the moment. Like you're not thinking about anything. You literally just check out of conscious thought. And I was able to do that by maintaining a singular focus on his voice. He was very, I don't know how to describe his presence, but he's one of those people that you immediately wanted to trust. And he's one of those people that you immediately felt had like this presence about him. You know, like I was so into kind of everything that he was telling us to do that I had no problem kind of letting go of my own fears to kind of let him run the show, you know? And then finally, the feeling that I felt when I was in that hypnotized state, that one that's very vulnerable to suggestion, was the same feeling that I feel right before I fall asleep. So it's kind of like right in between wakefulness and like completely asleep, where you just feel super relaxed. I don't know how else to describe it, but I hope everyone here has felt that to some degree. Okay, so the first thing I had to do, I became Snow White. He told me that on the trigger word diamonds, I was gonna freak out and I was gonna panic because one of the doors had gone missing, and I would immediately race around the room until I saw somebody running towards me, which was another guy he hypnotized, and I would find him, and then the alert would be over, and I would come out of whatever state I was in. And then I was also part of the finale because of how, like, I'll expand a little bit too, of how crazy I was during the Snow White thing. He's like, this chick's gonna be up for the finale, and I was Britney Spears and proceeded to go on stage and like dance to like Baby One More Time or whatever. So
when you're resuming these roles, do you feel that you're resuming these roles, or is that just?
I'll get into it.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is just kind of setting the stage. So yeah, you're very like, when you're in this relaxed state, you hear him telling you these things. He's like, you're gonna go up there, you're gonna be Britney, it's gonna be your like 1,000th show in Vegas, like you've practiced it 1,000,000 times, love doing this, it's your favorite song. Like he gives you a bunch of very positive things to focus on. And for the Snow White one, he was doing the exact opposite. It's like, you're gonna be terrified, you're gonna be in this stricken panic, and you want everybody to know nobody's listening to you, that Dopey is lost and he's gonna die, right? Like he just tells these things into your ear very quickly, you know? And when you're in that state, you're still a skeptic. You're like, oh, I don't know if that's gonna work. He wakes you up and you're even more skeptical. Like he sends you kind of off the stage because he's got a bunch of other people doing other stuff. And you sit in your seat waiting for this trigger word, right? Like I'm waiting for this word diamonds, being like, what if I'm not hypnotized, right? Like, and then it's like all the stage fright comes back because you're like, what am I gonna do? Like, do I fake it? Like, what if I just sit here, you know? And you don't really know what's gonna happen until he says it. And like, I have a really short attention span anyway, so I wasn't even really paying attention to what he was saying. And he said diamonds like not even on cue. It was like in the middle of a sentence. He wasn't like, and then I found some diamonds. It was like, no, he was like, oh, and then past like the diamonds or whatever. And before I knew it, it just felt like just a surge. I became a different person. Like I can only talk about it as being the state that you're in and comfortable being. The person you are, your normal, suddenly disappears. And suddenly the only thing you can think about or feel are the things he told you. Because it's just, again, you completely surrendered to his suggestion. And so I even had some like mild hallucinations. Like it's just proof that whatever you full-heartedly believe, your mind kind of makes it real. When I was Britney Spears, I swear I saw like blonde hair sticking out of the side of like my like eyes, like at the corners. And I mean, I can barely dance, you know, and like the dance moves I had on stage, like there was a video for a while. I don't know what happened to it, but I remember watching it after that day and seeing myself being like, that's not me. I don't even know how to do that. Like, how did that even happen, you know? So all I know is that it was, for me, like for the first like few weeks that I reflected on it, I couldn't even really describe it. It was just, you were somebody else. And it was incredible because I'd never done that before. And ultimately, it felt like I handed over the keys to my brain to like someone who could actually drive the car I was in. You know, whereas I was a novice, I suddenly felt like I was a better version of myself, that I was this different person. And what I learned was that there's this huge box of what we're capable of. But what we feel comfortable doing and what we think we're capable of is only a small part of what we can actually do, you know? And ultimately, we have these different parts of our brain that say, yes, I've studied for the test. I'm going to be okay because I studied. And that's a really, you know, valuable tool, because if you don't study for the test, obviously, you might not do so well. You know, but how many times do we tell ourselves that we can't do something because we haven't practiced it? Because we've never tried it before, or because the first time that we tried it, we sucked at it, or it didn't come easily to us. You know, and I think so many of us, whether we're conscious of it or not, every day are telling ourselves that we can't do this and we can't do that because it's just not who we are. You know, for a long time, like, I just can't dance. Like, I'm a white girl. Like, yes, like, my heritage is like Mexican, but all my like Latina friends could like really do it, and I really couldn't. And then I saw this Britney Spears video and like watched it every day for like weeks after the fact, and I'm like, it's in me. Somewhere it's in me, you know, like I can do it. And really, what I'm trying to like pass on to all you guys is that it doesn't really take being hypnotized to kind of tell yourself that you are capable of way more than you ever imagined, right? All it takes is kind of cultivating a new normal, you know, being comfortable with being uncomfortable. The more you try things that are outside of your comfort zone, the more you can try to integrate those new things into your normal space. You should always revisit things that you suck at. Like, I have a terrible fear of public speaking, and yet I'm doing this right now. You know, it's something I've worked really hard to get better at, because I'm like, you know, if other people can do it, I know I can do it. You know, or I'm still hypnotized, right? And that was another thing. Like, when he took me out of Britney Spears, I remember standing up there, right? And I'm like out of breath, and he's like, Marty, wake up. And I remember it just suddenly, like, the audience changed. I was no longer in Vegas. I was no longer like Britney Spears. I was Marty on stage in front of 600 people I didn't know. And I just felt this like tsunami of like fear and like, oh my God, what did I just do? I have to see all these kids tomorrow, kind of thing. But knowing that it is possible to feel that carefree and that confident, it was incentive for me to keep trying to get back to that state. Because again, like, how much do our own fears hold us back every day? We don't even know it. And I will say that it's easier to be somebody else. So I know Brian mentioned this during his talk about imposter syndrome, fake it till you make it. But I think the reason that when you get hypnotized, you're given a different persona is because your skeptical mind has a hard time, like, you've convinced yourself that you can't do something. It takes way more energy to convince yourself that you can do it than to pretend like you're somebody else who can do it. You know, so ultimately, I'm a big fan of like having a role model or having somebody who inspires you, is saying, well, I'm not going to be me because I suck at that. I'm going to be that person who can do that really well. And then, you know, a big reason I actually came to Slalom was because I was feeling a little uninspired at my old work, at my old office. Like, I was with a bunch of really great people, but I missed the kind of the like zest for learning and the ambition that I'd had in college. And I'd heard Slalom had people who were constantly like growing and evolving and exploring not only technology but themselves. You know, so coming here, I've been inspired by so many people. I feel like it's something that everybody should continually try to do, is to surround themselves with people who have traits that they don't have. So that's the end of mine right now. I found a really great TED Talk by this guy named David Bernstein, and he actually talks about how physically hypnotism saved his life. He was in a tragic hockey accident, and he was able to overcome the chronic pain he had kind of associated with his current normal state through hypnotism, and he actually became a hypnotist and helps people get over their like kind of I don't know, kind of like quirky fears that they have, and he does a really good job of kind of explaining his view on hypnotism and how he sees it. Before I go into it, any questions?
Yeah. So how do you think your hypnotist had you as a 7-8? How did he know that you weren't denying time?
Yeah, he does the test like to weed everybody out, where he puts everyone on chairs in front of the audience, and he guides you into that relaxed, kind of hypnotized state. And the people who just kind of stare at him like, homie, nothing's happening, he kicks off the stage right away. And then he, like, the people who start to sag out of their chairs, because he says, like, you know, relax your arms, relax your eyes, relax your nose, and he'll say, relax your legs, you know, and like everyone starts to like slither to the floor, because if you trust him explicitly and like implicitly, then you'll just do what he's going to do. You know, and he's like, okay, this person trusts me enough to do what I'm telling them to do. They're a good like candidate for it. Like I remember he caught my head on the way down. I'm like, thanks, bud. You know? Yeah, and then anything else? Has anyone here ever been kind of like hypnotized or had any kind of meditative different, like I know they have the like think tanks. Anyone ever heard of those, where it's like you go into a tank of water?
Or deprivation chamber.
That's what it is,
Yeah.
deprivation
Huge in
chamber.
Chicago.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to try it.
I heard it's a great time, and I heard it's very similar to being hypnotized, where you get rid of all external stimuli, and it's just you kind of floating around water with your thoughts. My sister did it, and she really liked it. So.
You should talk about the, yeah.
Yeah.
You should talk to fans.
Yeah, I've been floating for about 12 years at this point, so.
Are they called floaters? Or? That's a good name for a group.
Yeah, the main place in Chicago, actually, they're moving down the street, so I think they're reopening it. They redone their facility about a year ago, and that whatever that building is on Lincoln, the funky one, the long funky one by Lincoln and what's that called? North of there.
Oh,
anyway,
right there. That's nice, man.
Anyway, it's the same kind of out the state. I mean, floating kind of gets you in that same territory. It's a little different. I don't know if it'd be suggestible, but different floats get different reactions out of people. Basically.
Really?
Yeah.
Like depending on the length of time that you were there?
I mean, yeah, it can. I mean, the normal float time is usually 60 minutes. If you're just doing it for a while, they'll up it up to 90. I'll do 60 minutes. I usually get bored after that. There's kind of natural cycles that happen. It's in some ways it's no different than you know, the brainwave patterns from sleeping, and you can go in certain states. Yeah. The saying that they always say is you don't necessarily get the float that you want, but you get the float that you need.
Huh.
Meaning that sometimes you might go into the float tank and fall asleep immediately, or you might get really strong visualizations, or a combination of two.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, so after a while, I found myself kind of falling.
This is a minor thing, but when my sister went, she complained that it was too hot in there. Actually,
Yeah.
temperature, yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, they are going for sensory deprivation, so it should be body temperature. You got earplugs in. It's completely dark. Yeah, ideally it's your floating in space.
Cool. Awesome.
What's the difference between this, like what you guys are talking about, in meditation? It sounds similar.
I think they're all kind of the same, from the same vein, right? Where meditation is really about clearing your mind and letting go.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like with the hypnotism,
more
it's saying
external.
once you've cleared your mind,
Yeah.
somebody else is telling you to focus on a particular thing at a
Yeah.
particular moment in time and to do something. And I don't know if anyone can like live in a hypnotized state forever. I think it's really very specific to, you have a set of instructions to do and you just do it. You know, it's again, a lot of it's just turning off your conscious part and just focusing on doing. So whenever I get stressed, one thing I tell myself is don't even focus on the end goal. Focus only on the next slide or on the next thing that you're doing. And it's able to like get rid of a lot of thoughts that aren't helpful, you know, that are stressful. Because like I bowl a lot, and a lot of times you focus on like, oh, I have to shoot like a turkey in order to win this game, and you'll miss every time. But if you tell yourself just to hit second arrow, you're gonna make that shot every time. So
You have an identical twin sister.
I do. Yeah.
Is her cognition similar when she's in?
She was not hypnotized because she. It's kind of a joke we have, and everybody both raise their hands. I'm always picked, and she's not for some reason.
Right.
And,
But I'm saying like
yeah.
she went to this chamber or whatever.
Yeah.
So is her way of approaching it like similar to?
I mean,
or-
we think very differently, but I definitely understood what she was trying to communicate when she was describing that situation. And Moni's actually a great example of like, you know, you can't ever see yourself, right? Like if you try something new, you're like, oh, do I look dumb trying this out? Like, how do other people see me? Moni was always like a great tool because she would do something, and I'm like, that looks awful. Like, I'm not gonna do that, right? Or we would start, you know, different styles or whatever, and like she's like a test subject that I could see how people interacted with her, and then if I liked it, copy it. If I didn't, do the exact opposite, you know. So that was always pretty cool.
I feel like that's not.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. If you have like a brother, sister, even a friend, you can do the same thing. So, anything else? Before I go into David? Yeah.
Yeah, I missed the beginning, but so I get the context of being hypnotized a long time ago. Is this something that you continue? Like, would you use this again? Would you?
I mean, I definitely have looked for people here who
Yeah.
do hypnotism because I think it'd be cool to just see like what I can do and like
Yeah.
what things I can improve on. But I haven't found anyone here that I particularly liked.
So is that a trust thing, or like what do you look for? in
It's
a
more
hypnotist?
like, for me, I just base it on how interesting I think they are.
Huh.
You know, in terms of like how like, are you just doing this? Like, what could you actually, like, what could I gain from doing this? You know, because a lot of times they say, well, what are you struggling with? I'm like, I don't have any problems with anything. I just want to see like what further things I could explore. And they're kind of like, man, they're really wishy-washy about it. So, but I feel like if there's anything in terms of anxiety, or like they do it for like sleep disorders, they do it for, you know, curbing eating if you eat a lot and all that stuff. It can be applied to pretty much anything. So a lot of it's just been laziness on my part. I'm like, I can do it on my own. You know, I don't really need somebody. But. Anything else? All right, so we're gonna go and see what David has to say about the universe within.